Knives, knives, and more knives. Today, we get to meet with a master craftsman who lives in Poland about his life as a blacksmith, bladesmith, and Catholic. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to another episode of the Catholic Gentleman Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Guzman, with my co-host, John Heinen. And today we're joined by a special guest who is skilled in the art of blacksmithery. But before we get to that, I just want to invite you all to subscribe to our channel, whether that's on YouTube or your podcast player of choice. Please consider subscribing or leave a review. Reviews help us a lot. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to leave a review for us, and that really helps us reach more and more men like you. Last thing I want to invite you to do is consider donating on Patreon. Your support does go a long way to continuing to produce content like this. So patreon.com/Catholic Gentleman, check it out and can consider prayerfully a donation to support this work. So, but as we said, we are joined today by a fine craftsman, an artisan, and blacksmith from Poland. So I'm pleased to introduce a name that I'm sure to butcher, but I will do my best. Leszek Sikon, who we're going to refer to as Les, just to make things easier. But Les came to the United Kingdom 17 years ago, and he earned a decent living as a middle manager in a retail. And yet there's just something unfulfilling about this career. He knew he wanted to create something that would last. And he was used to getting his hands dirty and working hard. So he was thrilled to learn that the Hereford College of Arts ran a blacksmithing school. And the next thing he knew, he was quitting his job and enrolling in that school to become a blacksmith. Since then, he has found his passion in producing a series of superb artisan tools and knives using age-old skills to produce modern objects of desire. And his inspiration comes from the history and traditional methods of blacksmithing and getting to grips with a hammer, tongs, and fire. And having these skills has paid off far more than he ever expected. And it is now his full-time job, I believe. So thanks so much for being with us, Les. What a very cool story. And we're looking forward to learning more about the skill of blacksmithing.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Happy to be here. I've been listening to you for a while now, so I actually got one of your rosaries as well, which is
wow.
Yeah, it's great because I was looking for something like that. I usually break mine because they're usually like tiny string. And this is just built like a tank, so you're not gonna move that.
You can go rappelling with it. No, actually, don't try that. But so there's a lot of saints from Poland. Are you going to be a future saint? I'm just curious.
Sorry, what?
It was a joke. I said there's a lot of saints from Poland. Are you planning to be a future saint? Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, you never know. But it's probably my brother has more chances to do that than I do. But hey, yeah.
he's the good kid in the family.
No, I wouldn't say good kid, but he's the priest in the family, so you know.
Oh,
okay.
No. I guess we gotta go off the subject, but he basically is a missionary priest, so he's been around the place. So actually, he just came back from Ukraine a couple of days ago, when he was running supplies between the parishes down there. Basically, they were shipping stuff from Krakow to nearby Lviv, to one of the parishes that his congregation runs, and he was basically delivering it to other churches around Ukraine. So yeah, and he came back a couple of days ago, and now he's on his way to Pakistan. So hey,
wow,
yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I guess I can plug him in. It's on YouTube, Art43. It's mostly in Polish, but if you want to have a look on what he's doing, because he does film most of his travels as he does his missionary work. So it is an interesting watch.
That's excellent. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really special.
Well, if you want to get him in the future podcast, maybe that's the idea.
That's fun. So we here over in America, I'd love to hear from you actually, because you brought it up. Are you experiencing directly refugees and things like that from Ukraine? What is, other than your brother's work actually going into Ukraine, what is, in this crazy time that we're in right now, how is Poland handling some of this?
I would say we're handling amazingly, all things considered, because the biggest surprise whenever you got anyone from UN coming to Poland or from abroad, there's no refugees camps whatsoever. It's basically all those people, and I think the number is like of Ukraine that stayed in Poland right now is over 1.5 million. They basically spread out through the whole Poland, and they just live in people's houses. We even got a couple. I live in a small village down here in the south, and there are a couple of families around here. The kids are already in the school. Like my niece was saying about her new colleague that just joined them, and they try. Yeah, so it is quite an interesting to see how we're dealing with the crisis. And the kid doesn't know Polish, which is like the interesting thing. So they're actually talking English between themselves. So they try to communicate in English. Polish and Ukrainian are very similar languages, so I'm sure he's gonna pick up quite quickly, and she is gonna be able to communicate with him quite well. But all things considered, I think we're doing fine so far.
Wow. Well, praise God for that. And I'll just offer a thank you to you and the country of Poland and everything for how you're helping in such a very unique and needed way. So praise God for that. So
yeah, thank you for that. And the parishes are amazingly involved in all the help. This is like one of those things that goes silently, because I have no idea how much supplies my local parish has already gathered and sent off. Those are crazy amounts. I think Caritas itself has sent in a matter of hours like 40 truck lorries to Ukraine, just like hours after the conflict started. So then this is something that people don't really talk about, and I think the church doesn't really advertise that, because this is not the idea. To be showing off how good are we. This is not that's more in the teaching, but I think we should be talking about that a bit more than we do.
I completely agree. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So my question is, you were in this career that you're a manager in retail, and perhaps you were making a sufficient living, but where did that kind of desire, tell us a little bit about that desire that you had for something more, and how did you know that you wanted to do something different, and what attracted you to working with your hands in this way?
Honestly, that was a total burnout in the job. I was like hating it at one point in my life. So that was not a career for me. And I know people that enjoy working like that, managing people in supermarkets. I have no idea how that works, but hey, good for them. But I was on the total low in my life at that point, and family noticed that, so they did push me, to get out, to look for something different, and and there was a lot of praying involved in that, what I should do with my life at that point, because I was 28 at that point. So this is already a bit late in my life, for going back into college. At least that's the general idea between people. I took the jump in the end, and I found the blacksmith. I was at the beginning, I did look into engineering and things like that, but nowadays it's much more CAD work in front of the computer than actually making something with your hands. And I kind of stumbled on Hereford as I was Googling things. I think I was either reading Lord of the Rings at that time again, but or something like this, or maybe I was watching a documentary from the movie, how they actually made all the props for it, and there was quite a lot of blacksmiths involved in this project. So that might be a bit of a inspiration to actually Google blacksmithing into the browser and see if anything pops out. And then I basically went on the open day and I had a bit of a play. Okay, let's do this. That was it,
Yeah. So you wanted to be a dwarf.
Maybe not exactly, but that was just fun thing to do. They really get dirty and gritty and just just so feel that you worked through the day. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. And what a blessing that how God's inspiration moved you in that direction. So when you dove into learning how to be a blacksmith, was it what you expected? What were some of the differences that you just really weren't prepared for? And then I'd love to hear how moving from school to actually trying to make a living doing this in a society that, everything is high-end equipments and technology and, so getting down to be able to make the beautiful, honestly, works of art, but also, knives and things like that people can use day to day. I'd love to hear from you how that transformation went in your life.
When I first went to the school, I thought I'm kind of lost those couple of years that I spent in Tesco from my life. But in the end, it actually turned out to be very good for me because I kind of knew this retail side of things and how to plan a bit of ahead. So all those negative experiences from that time is actually paid out in the end. So this is like we know that there's a place for each of us in our life that God gives us, and I think that that path was a bit thorny, but in the end it really paid off. So when I first went into school, I already was talking with my teachers, how to be a blacksmith in the 21st century, how they did approach the subject, how much does it cost to get the proper equipment to be efficient. So I knew, the bill for when I lived at school, how much I would need to put out to actually go straight into a craft instead of being, part-time in work and just doing it in the weekends or something like this. So I was pretty much ready, and I keep on working in retail through college as I was studying, just part-time jobs, doing overtime as crazy whenever I had a chance, that kind of stuff. So I had a proper, savings ready. So when I left college, I was ready to go straight into the business and, buy the necessary equipment. And it was good. I made quite a lot of friends. So I moved in with a friend of mine that already had a workshop set up. So I didn't have to buy everything. I just need to buy stuff that he didn't have to do my work. And we didn't step on each other's shoes because he does a lot of architectural blacksmithing, gates, railings, that kind of stuff. I concentrate on tooling and especially on the kitchen knives. So it all worked out really, really well in the end. But it's all about planning and being consistent with your plan and sticking to it as much as possible, because no plans survives meeting with reality, as somebody says.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I think that was one thing that keeps a lot of people from trades is the idea, I'm not going to make a lot of money. You can't make a good living with this, which you've proven is not true.
It's very, very tight in the first year, because they're like 3 years is in most of the craftsmen I was talking about is your 3 years, first 3 years, and you need to basically survive. And you need to establish your name, establish your brand, and try to get as much of your work out there, either through live shows, social media, whatever works for you. And after that, it's kind of you start to be known if you deliver the good quality work as well. You can do a lot of stuff on Instagram, but you still need to do a quality product in the end, whatever you're doing, either if you're a blacksmith or a potter or do woodwork. But after 3 years, I really noticed that it's kind of started rolling by itself. All that money that I've invested into shows and into promoting, it started to pay up. And now I'm starting my 5th year. Even during the COVID, it was way better than I thought it's gonna be that 2020. But it all pays up, from all the investment that you've done before.
Excellent.
Yes. So it is a viable career path. And you mentioned too, the knives as kind of or the tools are more your specialty. Now I imagine like with like doing architectural work, like railings and doorknobs or things like that, there's a completely, it seems like anyway, there'd be a completely different skill set that would go with that than like working with making a kitchen knife or something like that. Is there a big difference?
To a degree, like you kind of with a smaller work like mine or other tooling, you got a much more, you got a quicker flow of work, so you can knock out a knife in a week if you got like a week that you can just work on it. With the gates, this is like a project that takes months, so you need to be much more careful with your planning and spending and showing your work to your client, etc. On top of that, I mean, the basic techniques are the same. It's just the tooling that you're using are different, and you kind of need to tool up to the job. This is the best thing about blacksmithing, really, because you can make the tools you need. You don't have to go to a shop and buy a tool that is actually very hard to get. Swage blocks, stuff like that. Metal forming tools, basically. You kind of need to make them for a job. So we end up with a lot of tools that we just made for one particular job, especially when you make railings and gates. But that's great because you kind of expand your knowledge and expand your tool shop, and you never know when you're going to need the tool again. Yeah,
absolutely.
but basic techniques are exactly the same. It's just the scale differs.
Yeah, I use that as an excuse, actually, when I'm doing woodworking to buy new tools. It's like, hey, I don't have a planer. Sweetie, we're going to save a lot of money if I get the planer and do this ourselves. And so I know what you're talking about,
you need
though.
To make sure you got the right tool. No way around it.
Do you get into woodworking with your handles and stuff like that? Is that something you do, or do you outsource? How does that work?
I make the whole thing. I make the handle as well, but probably from the woodworker's point of view, I'm completely. I'm not a professional at all, but I make do. I work with my belt grinders that I use for my knives, and I basically just grind the whole shape in instead of going nice and slow with a planer and other proper tools. So, but the end result is good. So hey, so I'm quite happy with it. Yeah,
that's too fun. So why knives? Of all the other possibilities, what about knives really called to your heart, or did you really appreciate and think, yeah, this is actually how I want to hone my craft? I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
As I do like making tools, and this is a tool that everybody has, so it kind of. It's a conscious decision between the things that I like to make and potential markets, let's say. And again, my retail experience kind of pops in on that one because this is something I can really market to a wide variety of people. I made myself a bunch of hammers and tongs and stuff like that, but what is the market for blacksmithing tongs except other blacksmiths, which most of them we're gonna make their own tongs anyway. So. So that just that's how I get into it. Besides, this is like when I was starting it really like pick up in popularity. Forge and Fire, the show that came from US, really like spread the news about blacksmithing and really helped to rediscover the craft in many ways. It's extremely popular. I don't have no idea. I think it's like on 11th season or something crazy like that right now. So you can imagine how many people watch that. And I run classes as well in UK still. And most of the people that come for my 2-day class come to for it because they've seen it in Forge and Fire and they just want to have a go themselves.
Fun. Do you travel back to the United Kingdom for those, or do you do it via Zoom or something like that?
No. I travel to United Kingdom still. I still have my business in UK because I'm in the process of moving everything. It's not the easiest, thing in the world. But this is like going in between the states, really, in US. It's not that far away. This is like 2 hours flight, and I'm in UK. So it's not as far as it looks,
Yeah, but you don't necessarily sell your forge in the UK and buy a new one in Poland. Did you ship all of your equipment as well?
I got like a setup in Poland right now, and I got a setup in UK as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got a small workshop in Poland. Basically, that's enough for me to make knives to ship. I'm going to be moving probably some of the equipment to Poland later on in the year. We'll see how it works. It's still in a bit of a flux where I'm going to stay in the end. But I do want to move everything to Poland eventually. It's just it's not the easiest thing to do. That's a lot of heavy equipment involved. So yeah.
So have you ever made a sword? Because I like swords. Like every male I know likes swords. Like there's just something like the thought of actually using one is kind of scary, but there's just beautiful instruments. So like you make swords regularly or
not regularly because the price tag for it is absolutely horrendous. If I were to make one, but I did make couple for Royal Armories in UK. It's a museum in Leeds so we made couple replicas that they requested from us. So we made an arming sword, which is basically a medieval nobleman's sword. That was fun. We made a koncerz, which is a winged hussar sword. That was 1.5 meters long.
Wow.
That was a challenge, yes. So it's basically a triangular shape blade, closer to a rapier really than to a sword.
Yeah.
That basically goes 1.5 meters long to a tip with a triple hollow grind. If there's any blacksmiths around there that listening, they know exactly how hard that's gonna be to make. But they requested a replica because they only had one, and they really were impressed with the winged hussars that came from Poland to Leeds to show reenactment guys. Yeah. So that was fun. That was really good. Yeah, but sword not really my market.
What is the price tag
yeah.
on something like that? I mean, I think we're all ignorant. So yeah, well,
if I would have to make one, let's say if I would go like full Damascus on a sword, we're probably looking like $4,000 for it, something in this kind of price range. Yeah,
I'll start saving now.
I'll drop you a discount here.
For the investment later. Yeah. So you said it, and I want to bring it in. It was something I wanted to talk to you about. Why Damascus Steel? Like I've seen, Alex Steele's YouTube channel. I've seen a lot of these other guys, and they're all about the Damascus Steel. And I understand, it looks kind of like water, but is it the strength? Is it the beauty? I mean, honestly, speak as if I am learning about it for the first time, and then the other types of metal that you've used or you like to use, but you've decided to focus on Damascus.
Well, there's like quite a lot of legend going around Damascus, and looks by itself. For me, it's mostly the looks. Really, you can depending how you fold the steel, you can get all sorts of patterns going on. So for example, you can see. I don't know if that's showed very well.
Yes, it does.
This is one way. Yeah, so that's one way of folding steel to get the pattern in, and to compare. This is a simple 3 layers, the 5-layer pattern. So nothing. So you can get all sorts of crazy effects with it, depending on how you're folding the steel. And nowadays, it really doesn't do that much for the steel itself or the hardness of it.
Okay.
Because we know how to smelt proper steel. But back in the day, when they were essentially when they were forging, smelting a steel in the medievals and a bit later, they would end up with a lump of stuff. There would be a little bit of steel in it, there would be iron in it, there would be some slag mixed into it, some leftover charcoal, and that would be like forged into a pancake and breaking apart. And if you know what you're looking for, you can essentially see the grain of the steel, and you know which parts of that pancake that will be broken apart are harder and which one are softer. And that will be restacked and forge welded into solid piece of steel and then folded over and over again. And that will basically make the steel much more homogeneous. So you end up with a homogeneous piece of steel that doesn't have the differences in the carbon content. So it wouldn't end up with one piece of steel being way, way harder than the other, and that would be the breaking point for the steel. And that's why they did it back in the day. They didn't really do it for a pattern, though there are some examples of steel swords from the era that was intentionally done for a pattern. But in most cases, they just did it to make the steel as best as they can. And if you look at the traditional Japanese katana making, this is essentially the process from medievals and Renaissance, early Renaissance. That's how they used to do the steel. But as the technology in Europe progressed, the better ways of smelting steel happened, and of course, 18th century absolute revolution when it goes to steel making, because we actually found out what makes steel hard, which is carbon as an element, and from there it really goes into like a proper steel making. We really control the carbon content of the steel and other elements. So nowadays, when you buy steel, you essentially get something called data sheet, and you follow the guidance that the producer of the steel give you to get the best of the steel you bought.
And so it's for the aesthetics of it, which is great. Is there also a little kind of interplay with the metal that you're getting to discover what the pattern is going to be? How much control do you have over that pattern?
Oh, you can get quite a lot of control. I'm getting there. There are guys out there that their control over the pattern is tremendous. They can pretty much make something called mosaic Damascus, and you essentially end up with like a mosaic on your knives. Wow. But it's what you're after. If you want to have a bit more organic look, like I do with the rough spine, you gotta get a little bit of a less control over the pattern. There's guys called Mareko Masi Fire Arts. He's probably one of the best guys out there when it goes to making the patterns into the knives. But for me, this is looks, and it's the fun of playing with the patterns. Each time I would try to make a different pattern and end up with a completely unique, set of knives instead of making the same thing over and over again. Because after 50 knives, it kind of gets a bit boring if you make a same thing all the time. So it's great to have a play with the patterns and see what happens. Just make sure to write all the steps somewhere, because then you can make the pattern again. And there are a couple patterns that I've made. I didn't recall a step or two, and I just have no idea how I made that anymore. So that's the risk. Yeah.
So great.
So I'm wondering too, like you kind of talking about making these unique patterns. We live in a mass-produced age right now, where machines can seemingly do almost anything. But there's still something special, no matter how precise a machine may be, or the incredible things that they can produce with factories and things. There's something special about something handmade. And so I'm wondering, like, when you're making things, there's obviously a science involved with the forge and with the tools that you use. There's a lot of like precision, but there's also like a lot of room for artistic expression, which you were kind of talking about just now. So I guess I'm wondering if, like, how much of this is like science, like following rules, and like how much of it is room for freedom and artistic expression, and how do you bring your own personal touch to the projects that you create?
So basically, you kind of need to consider both in a way. So when it goes to pattern, to a degree, a shape of a knife and a handle, this is all up to you. You can make whatever you want, but when you get to the functionality of it, that's where you need to really go into the science and metallurgy of it. Then that's where you need to follow that data sheet that I talked about and make sure that you do the process correctly to harden the steel correctly, so it doesn't get too brittle or too hard or too soft. So you can get the maximum durability out of your steel. This is where the science come in quite heavily. There's quite a lot of guys down there that will explain it in the great detail, but essentially you need to make sure that you follow the recipe if you want to get the best of your steel. Yeah, that's pretty much it. With the artistic work, I do done some other things that are much more artistic in a way, like the shell tools, or I've done an icon made out of the IED from Syria a couple of years back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
really
that was
cool.
that was the big project that I made with my brother to raise money for Aleppo a couple of years back.
Wow.
So that's where my more artistic side of expression is happening when I do that kind of project. They don't happen that often, as often as I would like, but when they happen, you really can show a completely different set of skills.
And how do you find the transition from us, kind of living in this cerebral state? Like, I'm a marketing guy, I sit behind a computer, day in and day out. Sam, cures people's minds that are struggling. He helps them. And so, but you're actually able to work with your hands. You're actually able to labor. What are some of the benefits that you've experienced as a person, within this transition, and things that you find are just moments to be grateful for within your own day in and day out life?
Yes, it kind of really depends what kind of person you are. I'm a total introvert. I do like to be by my own. So working in a workshop like that is perfect for me. I can get into a zone. Get put some music on or some book on when I work, and I can just concentrate completely on what I'm making at the moment, or what I'm designing. I just feel way better doing this job than working in Tesco. And there are some bad times, because in any job there will be something go south. You work on a knife for 20 something hours and the thing breaks. It does happen. So it can be quite yeah. So it can be quite frustrating on occasion. It actually happened today. I was I think in 10 hours on that commission that I'm on right now, and I overheated the edge when I was grinding it. I was like a bit annoyed with myself, but hey, it happens. So you just need to learn how to let go of the mistakes and just continue.
Yeah, the virtue that you are capable of building, and so that just happened today. So you're just experiencing one of these down points and having said goodbye to 10 hours of work. I'm sorry to hear
unfortunately,
that.
Yeah. But it's not as frustrating now after a couple of years of working as it used to be. So So that's the plan, that you kind of learn how to live with it. It's just something that happens. It's just no point, stressing about it. Just start again or continue with another project.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I think you said you'd been doing this for about 5 years, and you've established a good business. But we know with any art or skill, or especially like a craft like this, where it seems like you can keep learning forever. Like 40 years from now, if you're still doing this, you're still going to be learning new things. I guess, what are some of your goals? What are some skills that you want to learn, or people who inspire you to keep growing as an artisan?
So actually in 2020, the great year of 2020, I was gonna go to Japan for a couple of weeks to learn how to smelt steel. So actually make steel from the ore itself. But so that was the skill that I really wanted to explore. And hopefully that will still happen, but it's just Japan need to open the borders. So they're still completely closed. So that's one of the things I really want to do. The other thing is I would like to come to US to visit a couple of blacksmiths that I know through social media. I did spoke with like Marek. That would be amazing to have a chat directly with him. And there's a Center of Metal Arts in US, which is amazing school for blacksmith. If anyone want to learn about it, I think that's the best place to learn in USA. Not just knife making. They do knife making, but they do general blacksmithing as well. Some amazing craftsmen teach in that school, and their setup is great. So check them out as well if you want to have a go at blacksmithing. So that was one of the places I want to go and basically spend a couple of weeks with the guys and learn from them. And as you say, you can learn this craft for the whole of your life. I do know couple blacksmiths that are over 8 years old, and they still teach, and they still saying that they learn new things every time that they meet blacksmith. We have something great going on in the craft, which is called forging in UK, but I think there's hammering in US. And basically you got a bunch of blacksmiths from an area, and they would meet up at somebody's workshop, and there would be like a theme, and people would just forge for the whole day. And that's where there's an exchange of techniques that are happening quite well, because you can basically have a look of how each of the blacksmiths are approaching, the design. So that's great way to learn from each other and meet, network with other blacksmiths and see how they're working.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Was like, what's the community like around this topic, and is there like a revival happening around some of these traditional arts? And
blacksmith community is super helpful. So I never had any issue except for a couple bad eggs, but there's always happens. But usually they'll let you know exactly how they would approach. Either if you ask them on social media or try to visit their workshop. So if you want a tooling or something like that, and you don't know how to do it, then just reach out to our blacksmith, and they'll tell you all about it. No problems whatsoever. There isn't that many of us as people think, So there's a lot of market around. Is the reaching of the customers that's the hard part. But in UK, which is a massive blacksmithing country in Europe, because of all the Victorian work that's been left over from 18th century, loads of metal work that needs to be restored every now and then. There's maybe like over 2,000 blacksmiths active, but that's 60 million people living in UK. So there's a lot of customers for you to reach to. So I think there's plenty of space for everybody to to do their craft. Even if you do the same thing, it's still gonna be slightly different and slightly unique, and I'm sure you can make a living out of it.
Have you, I was seeing when I was preparing for this episode that in the UK, there's like a lot of St. Dunstan like festivals for blacksmiths and stuff like that. Have you ever been able to partake in one of those communities? Because we're going to try and launch this episode here on May 18th, and then May 19th is his feast day. So is that something you've been able to experience firsthand?
Unfortunately not. The one, there's a big one, but it's actually for the Saint Eligius.
Okay.
Which is in the November. There's a big, but there's always something else happening at that time, unfortunately. And I kind of, I remind myself like a month before, and I look at my calendar.
It's already booked.
No, there's something. Yeah, it's already booked for something else. So I didn't have a chance to do that. And UK, it's not that much of a religious country anymore. So the Saint Eligius thing is happening more as a celebration of blacksmithing than
sure.
The Saint itself. Yeah.
Sure. So just a bit of a shift here. I want to hear. So what are, other than, working for 20 hours and breaking it, I mean, how many times have you cut yourself, burnt yourself? Like what are some of the the real dangers of blacksmithing and bladesmithing in your case?
Honestly, I haven't counted. I lost count to be honest.
I've seen, when the flame comes flying out.
The worst one I had personally when I burned the inside of my hand when I was twisting a steel and the wrench just slipped and I went red hot steel with my inside of the hand, and that was a little bit toasty. But it kind of, but you're dealing with a lot of heavy equipment, so you do need to respect the equipment as you work. And if you're not stupid about it and make sure that everything is maintained, so it's very little chance for anything to go south. It still can. Like one of my technicians at college, a great guy, super knowledgeable about every piece of equipment. Literally at his last year before his retirement, he was maintaining one of the power hammers, and he done it as always. Put his hand on the anvil for a second, and the freaking hammer fell down. Thank God he only lost his pinky, so he managed to run away, with his head, but he still cut his pinky, and what can you say?
I wasn't even thinking about the hammer, but of course you have to worry about that.
Yeah, so that's a lot of big pieces of equipment, but. To be honest, I haven't met many, gruesome accidents or anything like that. Except that's probably from my personal guys that I know, that's probably the worst I've seen. Woodworking is probably in a bed. I've seen a woodworker that had more damage, to be honest, than I've seen blacksmith. Yeah.
So that's why all you do is the handles. You don't get in further into that. Yeah.
I did met a blacksmith couple of years actually in Ukraine. I went on a blacksmith festival down Ivano-Frankivsk a couple of years, and that was international crowd. So I met a blacksmith from Holland. And an older guy at his 70s, and he lost a bit of his hand when he had some kind of a seizure over the circle or so, and kind of got dragged into it. So hey, I don't know if you want to leave that in the podcast, but they did manage to patch him up in the end to a point that essentially he can grab a hammer in his hand, and that's all the movement he does with his right hand. He has enough control that he has a hammer hand, and he still can forge.
Wow.
He's still there. He will wipe he still wipes the floor with pretty much all of us. But if it goes to technique, control of the steel and how to forge quickly and accurately, absolute master. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, old guys are amazing. I know in UK Pete Oberon, he's 86 right now. I had a master class with him, and the way the guy moves the steel, it's just mind-boggling. And he uses like a small hammer because he's in his 80s, and he's still way quicker than any of us. so that just it comes with an experience. It really does.
So great.
So I not too long ago went was gonna surprise my wife for her birthday with some really nice knives, kitchen knives, because we have always had really poor quality ones, and it seems like the countries with the best reputation are like Japan or Germany. But even then, you get online and you can't tell where these are actually coming from. Like there's so much like people, it's like branding or marketing, but like you don't know if this is actually like made by a real artisan or if it's just made in some factory somewhere, who knows where. And it's really hard to like know what to look for. And there's so much information out there. So if you were, in the market, not you, of course, but if someone was in the market for a good quality knife, what should they look for? What are some of those hallmarks of excellence or really good quality if someone wants to invest in a good set of knives?
Honestly, it's probably the best if you see if there's any stockists, any shops in your local town, if possible, because then you actually can get and have a look, by eye, because you can do wonders with the Photoshop in this day. Yeah, and the other thing that you look at is essentially the brand. How long they have been in the business, because like from Germany, the worst of guys, great, workhorses for the kitchen, absolutely amazing knives. If it goes through like a mass production knives, and of course look at the price tag. If it's cheap, it ain't good. It doesn't matter how it looks. It's not going to be good at all. So that's the things you need to look out for. Country of origin, of course, because there's a lot of knockoffs. Even if it goes to Damascus Steel, there's a lot of knockoffs of that happening right now. That the patterns would be essentially etched in with a laser. Yeah, so they will basically go with a laser etcher. They would etch the patterns in, and it looks, pretty good. If you don't know what you're looking for, so that's what happens. But your best bet is look for the local stockists, or look for a guy that shop online that deals with like a high end. In US, that is gonna be eating tools. That's the Abe that runs the place, absolute wealth of knowledge, and he has tools for your kitchen from all sorts of price ranges, and he does really make sure that whatever he sells is the highest quality for the price bracket.
Yeah, I think I saw your name on that website.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say,
best quality.
Yeah. No, we'll get in a way that it is a brand of success to get into eating tools shop to get your work in there, because Abe is just crazy good, crazy knowledgeable if it goes to kitchen knives and other tooling. He does make sure that he delivers the best he can find.
Oh, that's so great.
We'll put that in the show notes.
We will, of course, with all of your stuff that we'll get to, at the end of the episode here. But you did this great project you got commissioned for in the UK, where it was about, it was called, right, Tools of Destruction to Tools of Creation. And I'd like you to talk about this for our listeners, that basically was this opportunity to take ammunition from World War I and World War II and to recreate it, forge it and recreate these ammunition shells, some huge shells and artillery shells and things like that, to make it, farming equipment, stuff like that. I'd love to hear how you got into that, and also, kind of what you were able to learn and experience, and if there was anything very personal that, that was a joy of yours while you went through that.
So that was like my second year in college project, actually. So Surprisingly, I was like, yeah. So it was a great opportunity that Del, basically lady that runs the degree in blacksmithing. Oh, sorry. She basically got involved in the 100th anniversary Battle of Ypres down in Belgium, and there was a big blacksmithing exhibition and a festival going on at the same time with it. So that's the she gave us that you got an opportunity here. Do you want to be in it? To all the students, and everybody, submitted their projects, and then it went to a panel of judges, and I was lucky enough to get picked on to do this type of tooling out of the ammunition. And the whole idea actually came from talking with the older blacksmiths in Poland. Again, I went to a blacksmith meetup in Wojciechów, down in Poland in the summer before the college, and I was talking with Wojciech Kułak, blacksmith from Zakopane down south, and again, an 80-year-old guy. And that's what they do after the war, after the Second World War. There were no tools for the rebuild process. All the industrial effort was put into making weapons, so there wasn't any tools to actually do the rebuilding with or do the farming with. So they actually used old scrap, whatever they could find, into making tools, into making useful products for your house. It's like in nearby village, there's an old house, and one of the historians was walking around the place. And those old kitchens, wood-fired kitchen with like a big steel plate on top of it. And this guy comes into the house, have a look at the house. Do you know that this is a part of the tank armor from this particular tank that you're using as a cooking plate? And people were just recycling naturally. That's where the whole idea came from. And later on, it came to the whole set of tools went to EPS, and then went to US to Central Metal Arts, and a couple other places. Actually had a bit of a touring exhibition with the Forge exhibition with other amazing blacksmiths, and that really was shows for me that I'm on the right path here. That I'm actually getting good at blacksmithing. It really boosts my confidence that I managed to do like a major project in my second year of college, like that. That later on kind of evolved in that icon from the IED that I was talking about. So as I was saying, like my brother is a missionary priest, and he goes all around the places. He'd been building like hospitals in Africa, and we went to Pakistan a couple of years ago to do a movie about Asia Bibi. I'm sure you probably heard about her, her struggles with the Pakistani government. And during the ISIS crisis in Syria, he actually went to Aleppo. And literally, we had ISIS on the other side of the river. So he done filming with his friends to basically raise awareness about what's going on in Aleppo. He brought a friend of his that's a reggae singer to Aleppo with him, and the whole big project came out of it that we're gonna raise money to help schools that are run by the church in Aleppo. And what they did, they've made like this whole music album with various artists. And he brought this piece of IED that I used to reforge into a Byzantine style cross that been a centerpiece of this icon, and that icon was going all around the tour. That was basically raising money to set to Aleppo. I can't remember exact number that we raised, but it was a lot of money that we managed to raise through that project. And they've made the album as well, and in each album there was a tiny cross that had a part of that shell melded into it. So that was like an extra touch on it. But that was probably the most fun that I've had with making something, the shell tools, and later on this IED.
To turn it into something beautiful and something worthwhile. Wow. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That reminds me of the book of Isaiah 2:4. It talks about God will judge the nations, and they will turn their swords into plows and their spears into tools, essentially. So,
that's exactly what it became in the end. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
So you can see the videos about it. as well. We done a couple of things on YouTube. So if anyone is interested, you're gonna have to deal with Polish, but hey, I'm sure you can. Yeah.
Oh, we'll put those in the show notes for sure.
Just last question for me is just, we talked briefly about that just now, but, you're a man of faith, and, we're on this podcast, we're very much believers in not quarantining your faith in one dimension of your life, but really bringing it into everything that you do, whether that's your work or your relationships. And so I guess I'm just wondering, like, are there any lessons that you've learned that have informed your faith through the process of learning this art and this skill? And likewise, have you brought any dimensions of your faith to your work as you strive to be the best blacksmith you can be?
I think it was actually other way around. Is the faith that kept me going, because as I was saying, this first years that was tough. And to be honest, the whole time in UK, especially at the beginning, was a bit tough. If I didn't have a church to go into and basically pray, it would be, I don't know, I'd probably go into depression or something crazy. It was hard for a guy from a countryside of Poland to move to a completely different country with a completely different mindset, and that was like an anchor to keep me sane in the first years of being in UK. And later on, when I was setting up my business, the fact that I could go to the church and basically say all the things that are happening to God, and have some kind of, it's hard to explain. It kind of, the confidence just came from that, that I can do it, that this can work in the end. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but that's how it worked for me. Without this anchor, that I probably would not be doing that today.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And
we're thankful
now
you
it's
stuck
kind
with
of
it.
Yeah. And now, like everybody, probably like you guys as well. There was time that I was like on autopilot. I was going to church, on Sunday, but yeah, in the end, I'm back into the fold, if you can say it. And now they're back in Poland again. They're kind of experiencing a culture shock, because in the 17 years that I've been out, except for like holidays. That I came back to Poland, a lot has changed. A lot of my friends have progressed with their lives, and I kind of rediscovering my hometown, home village again. So, but it's quite fine, quite fun to do. And actually, later on when we finish, I'm gonna go to meet with some of my new friends in a way, and we're gonna be making a Easter Sunday for Palm. A gigantic palm for Palm Sunday. This Sunday. Yeah. So this is like a big thing in Poland, that we make those big palms. That's gonna be, I think we're aiming for 19 meters. To do it. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. It was not where my mind was in making those. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are I don't know what's happening in US, but in UK they had like those little crosses from the palm leaves.
Yes.
But in here we kind of go a bit bonkers with that. We do we try to make the biggest ones we can. So there are gonna be a lot of ones that people just brought with them from their house, like a meter or two ones, but there's gonna be couple that are just gonna be like those crazy ones, and it's a past. It happens more pretty much all over Eastern Europe. Everybody each city tries to make the biggest palm this year.
How fun!
I love that. I love that.
I do too.
I can't remember what was the biggest. I think the 40 meters one was the biggest so far.
Oh my word.
Something like that. Yeah, and everything is made. Yeah, everything is made from the. What's the name? Willow. Yeah, I think the willow trees. So you basically take willows with those little white buds that they just come up in the spring, and that's the basic building material for it. Yeah.
Wow.
It's super fun as well.
I'd love to see that.
But that's one of the traditions. Yeah, that's one of the traditions that we have here. They are quite unique. The other one, you might not have heard of it, maybe not, is Śmigus Dingus, which is a gigantic water fight all around Poland on the Easter Monday. So if the weather is good, yeah, that's the idea. It's just people just throw water at each other, pretty much in the whole Poland.
That's great!
Fun.
Wow.
To a point that you got the fire truck in front of the church, and when people goes in there, they'll spray a little bit of water on everybody.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
How fun! I love that.
We don't have those kinds of tradition here. So.
No.
Well, it's something to import, maybe.
Yes, I'll try it out with my kids.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Start small and then build from there. I like that a lot. How fun. Well, I'm just so grateful for you and for being here, Les. And so I want to make sure that as we're wrapping up here, that you have an opportunity to tell all of the listeners where they can find you. I know you have this incredible Instagram account that I love looking at, your website. You've got a lot of videos. We're going to be putting some of the videos into the episode here. We already have, but if you're listening to this point, but let us know where people can find you, and we'll put all that in the show notes as well.
That would probably be the easiest way if you go on the show notes. So because my website is LSIKON Blacksmith, which I probably should have done different name for my business, but hey, that's my name and that's my surname. So I'm sticking to it. I could have done like an acorn forge or something easier to remember, but that's what I'm sticking with. So follow the links in the descriptions or on that's the easiest way to find me. And Instagram is the medium that I use the most. That's the updates happens fairly often, and you can see what I'm making at the particular moment. And
I know you're doing commission. You do commission work, but do you also just create things and then sell them? What's your preferred method of somebody being able to connect with you? Take a look at what you have on your shop that's available, or reach out to you with a particular request.
So the best way to do it is go on the shop and pick the ones that you like. There's like examples essentially of what I make. At the moment I'm pretty empty, but if there's anything particular you want to make, then have a look at it and contact me over the email, and then we're gonna work it out. And I'm more than happy to do a bit of a customization. Change the handle material or maybe make it a bit longer or make it a bit smaller. That's all good with me. The other thing that I make, I don't know if you got any guys from UK, but if you want to learn how to do a knife, I do run a 2-day classes, and you basically come to the forge in the UK, and we're going to knock out the 50-layer Damascus knives in 2 days. 2 days under my supervision. Yeah. So those are super fun to run.
I bet they are
as well. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to run a pilgrimage that falls on one of those days and get some men to learn how to make knives from you. That sounds awesome.
Just let me know when.
Yeah,
let me know when, and we're gonna work it out. Yeah,
that's too fun. Wow. Well, great. Well, I again thank you so very much for your passion, for your artistry, and for meeting us with us today. So I'm just really appreciative.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And as we like to end every episode,
be a man, be a saint.